Have you ever noticed that the harder you chase something, the faster it runs away from you? Whether it's approval from others, career success, or even love, the desperate grip of wanting seems to push these very things out of reach. You spend sleepless nights overthinking every text message, every interaction, every possible outcome. What if the secret to becoming unstoppable isn't about caring more, but about caring less? What if the path to true freedom lies not in gaining control, but in releasing it entirely? Michel de Montaigne, the Renaissance philosopher who questioned everything society told him to value, discovered something remarkable about human nature. He found that our greatest suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from our desperate attachment to controlling them. The ancient Taoists understood this principle centuries earlier, teaching that when we stop forcing outcomes, we align ourselves with the natural flow of the universe. This video will explore how the art of not caring, not apathy, but strategic detachment can transform your life in ways you never imagined. By the end, you'll understand why releasing control is the ultimate act of self-mastery, and how to apply these timeless principles in your own journey toward unshakable inner freedom. Stick with me until the end, where we cover practical tips you can use to learn how to stop caring today. Now, let's explore the first principle that separates true detachment from destructive apathy. Michel de Montaigne spent years studying what it means to live well, and he discovered something that most people miss entirely. There's a crucial difference between healthy detachment and harmful apathy, and understanding this distinction could save you from years of emotional suffering. Montaigne believed that to philosophize is nothing more than to prepare for death. This isn't morbid thinking, it's the ultimate reality check. He understood that when you truly accept your mortality, you stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You stop caring about petty dramas, social status games, and the endless pursuit of more. Instead, you focus on what actually brings meaning to your existence in the time you have on this earth. Consider how much of your daily anxiety stems from trying to control the uncontrollable. You lie awake at night replaying conversations, wondering if you said the right thing. You check your phone obsessively, hoping for validation from others. You work yourself to exhaustion, believing that if you just try harder, you can force the outcomes you want. This is the prison that Montaigne recognized, the prison of caring too much about things beyond your influence. Montaigne wrote, "Preparing for death is preparing for freedom. Those who have learned to die have unlearned to live in servitude." When you accept that everything is temporary, including your own life, you naturally stop being a slave to external circumstances. You realize that your worth doesn't depend on other people's opinions, your happiness doesn't require perfect conditions, and your peace isn't contingent on controlling every outcome. Recent psychological research supports Montaigne's insights in remarkable ways. A study examining the relationship between psychological detachment and mental health found that people who practice healthy detachment experience significantly fewer depressive symptoms and greater emotional resilience. The research revealed that psychological detachment acts as a buffer against work stress, social pressure, and emotional exhaustion. When you can mentally turn off from external demands during your personal time, you create space for genuine recovery and inner restoration. The people who appear unstoppable share this quality of selective caring. They invest fully in what matters while remaining remarkably indifferent to what doesn't. This creates an inner fortress that external circumstances cannot penetrate, a source of strength that remains constant regardless of what happens around them. But how does this principle actually work in practice, especially when it comes to achieving the very goals we think we need to care about desperately? Ancient Taoist philosophy contains a secret that modern achievers struggle to understand. The Tao Te Ching teaches us that the Tao, way of the universe, never does anything, yet through it all, things are done. When there is no desire, all things are at peace. This points to a practical truth about how success actually works. When you stop desperately seeking outcomes, you often achieve them more easily because you eliminate the anxiety-driven behaviors that sabotage your efforts. Think about the last time you really wanted something. Maybe a job, a relationship, or recognition for your work. Chances are your desperation created tension that others could feel. You became needy, pushy, or inauthentic in your approach. You second-guessed every decision and overthought every interaction. The Taoist concept of Wu Wei, or effortless action, teaches us to work with natural forces rather than against them. The text references this by saying, "The gentlest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world. That which has no substance enters where there is no space." This doesn't mean being passive or lazy. It means aligning your actions with the natural flow of circumstances rather than forcing outcomes through sheer willpower. Consider how this plays out in real relationships. The person who desperately seeks approval from others often repels the very connection they crave. Their neediness creates discomfort in others. Meanwhile, the person who is genuinely content with themselves, who doesn't need external validation to feel complete, naturally attracts others. People are drawn to those who possess this inner completeness because it represents freedom from the exhausting dance of mutual validation. What's fascinating is that this detachment actually increases your effectiveness because you make decisions from clarity rather than fear. You take calculated risks because you're not paralyzed by the need for guaranteed success. You pursue opportunities that genuinely align with your values rather than chasing whatever seems to offer the most external validation. This authenticity and clarity make you more attractive to the very opportunities and people you were previously chasing unsuccessfully. However, this external detachment must be balanced with an unshakable internal compass. You need to know who you are and what you stand for, independent of what others think. And this brings us to our next principle. Antisthenes, the founder of Cynic philosophy, possessed something that most people desperately lack: complete independence from external opinion. When told that Plato spoke ill of him, he replied, "It is a royal privilege to do well, and to be evil spoken of." This is not arrogance, but the rightful claiming of his own self-worth. When asked what advantage he had gained from philosophy, Antisthenes answered, "The advantage of being able to converse with myself." This single statement reveals the secret of unshakable confidence. Most people need constant external feedback to know if they're on the right track. They check social media for likes, seek approval from friends and family, and measure their worth by comparing themselves to others. Antisthenes had developed something far more valuable: an internal guidance system that couldn't be manipulated by external circumstances. This inner sovereignty creates a kind of psychological freedom that others find both attractive and intimidating. When you're genuinely secure in your own judgment, You stop participating in the exhausting games that most people play. You don't need to prove yourself through expensive purchases, impressive achievements, or constant social performance. You evaluate your choices based on your own values rather than society's expectations. The practical power of this mindset becomes clear when you face criticism or setbacks. Instead of being devastated by negative feedback, you can evaluate it objectively. Is there truth in it that can help you grow? Then you accept it gratefully. Is it based on someone else's insecurity or misunderstanding? Then you let it pass without taking it personally. Your emotional equilibrium isn't dependent on others' opinions because you've developed your own unshakable self-belief. Research on self-compassion supports these ancient insights in remarkable ways. Studies show that people with high levels of self-compassion treat themselves with kindness rather than harsh self-criticism, view their struggles as part of the shared human experience rather than personal failures, and maintain emotional balance during difficult times rather than becoming overwhelmed. This self-compassionate approach acts as a buffer against stress and creates the emotional resilience that makes true detachment possible. The person who has mastered inner sovereignty appears unstoppable because they're not constantly second-guessing themselves or seeking permission from others to live authentically. They pursue their goals with persistence because their motivation comes from within rather than from external validation. Yet, this inner strength must be paired with outer simplicity to create true freedom, which brings us to our final principle. Diogenes the Cynic discovered something that modern consumer culture desperately wants to hide from you. Happiness increases as dependence on external validation, possessions, and social status decreases. His life was one of fundamentals, finding out how little he actually needed to be truly free, and his discoveries are still relevant today, over 2,000 years later. Once, Diogenes saw a child drinking water from his hands and immediately threw away his drinking cup, saying, "That child has beaten me in simplicity." This wasn't just about minimalism. It was about recognizing how many of our possessions actually possess us, even though they are simply objects. How many things do you own that you don't truly need? How much mental energy do you spend maintaining a lifestyle that doesn't actually make you happier? Diogenes understood that covetousness was the metropolis of all evils. The desire for more money, more recognition, more possessions, more status, creates a mental prison that keeps you perpetually dissatisfied. You acquire one item only to want the next upgrade. You reach one level of success only to worry about maintaining it or advancing further. This endless cycle ensures that you're never present, never satisfied, and never truly free. This principle applies far beyond material possessions. Consider how much emotional energy you spend maintaining relationships that don't truly nourish you, jobs that drain your soul, or social obligations that feel meaningless. Diogenes would ask, what would happen if you simply stopped? What if you said no to commitments that don't align with your values? What if you let go of relationships built on mutual performance rather than genuine connection? The research on psychological detachment confirms what Diogenes practiced instinctively. Teachers who can turn off thoughts related to their job and switch off mentally during non-work time are more likely to enjoy life and recover during their leisure time, which helps them better deal with emotional exhaustion and depressive symptoms. This mental simplicity, the ability to be fully present in each moment rather than carrying the weight of every obligation and worry, create space for genuine happiness to emerge. The truly powerful person has learned to carry their happiness within them rather than seeking it through external acquisition or achievement. They can be content anywhere because their contentment isn't dependent on circumstances. They can pursue their goals with passionate intensity because their self-worth isn't riding on the outcomes. This inner simplicity creates outer freedom that no external force can take away. Now that we understand these timeless principles, the question becomes, how do you actually implement this wisdom in your daily life, especially when you're surrounded by a culture that promotes the opposite values? Let us take a look at some practical steps next. So how do you actually stop caring so much when your mortgage payment is due, your boss is demanding results, and your social media feed constantly reminds you of what everyone else seems to be achieving? The transformation begins with a simple but powerful exercise that the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. Through it, we learn to release our obsession for control in life. First, take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write "within my control." On the right side, write "outside my control." Now list everything that's currently causing you stress, anxiety, or frustration. Be honest about which category each item belongs in. You'll likely discover that most of your worries fall into the outside my control category. Other people's opinions of you, the outcome of job interviews, whether your romantic interest returns your feelings, the state of the economy. These are all outside your direct influence. Yet you probably spend most of your mental energy trying to control these very things or worrying about them. The first step toward freedom is committing 100% of your energy to the items in the left column, while practicing acceptance of everything in the right column. For items outside your control, practice this simple phrase: "This is not mine to carry." When you catch yourself worrying about someone else's response to your text message, remind yourself that their reaction is not yours to carry. When you find yourself anxious about whether you'll get the promotion, remember that the final decision is not yours to carry. This isn't about being passive. You still take appropriate action within your sphere of influence. However, you release the mental burden of trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control in the first place. The second practice involves what I call the 30-day Indifference challenge. It combines the neuroscience of habits with the power of not caring. For the next month, make one small choice each day based solely on your authentic preferences, rather than what you think will impress others or gain their approval. Maybe you choose to wear something you genuinely like rather than what's currently fashionable. Perhaps you express an unpopular opinion in a conversation instead of just agreeing to fit in. You might choose to spend Friday night reading at home rather than going out, because that's what actually sounds appealing to you. Start small with these authentic choices. Order the meal you actually want at a restaurant rather than what seems healthiest or most impressive. Choose the movie you're genuinely interested in seeing rather than what you think your friends will prefer. Express your real opinion about a topic instead of saying what you think people want to hear. Notice how much mental energy you reclaim when you stop performing for others' approval. The third practice focuses on simplifying your external environment to support your inner transformation. Choose one area of your life, your wardrobe, your social commitments, your digital consumption, and practice simplicity. If you're focusing on your wardrobe, keep only clothes that you genuinely enjoy wearing and that serve a clear purpose. If you're addressing social commitments, Say no to events that drain your energy without providing meaningful connection or growth. The goal isn't to become rude or uncaring about others. It's about creating space in your life for what truly matters by removing what doesn't. When Diogenes threw away his cup after seeing a child drink from their hands, he wasn't being dramatic. He was recognizing that he had been carrying unnecessary weight. What unnecessary weight are you carrying that could be released? Remember, these practices work together synergistically. As you simplify your external life, you create more mental space for authentic choices. As you make more authentic choices, you develop greater trust in your inner judgment. As your inner judgment becomes more reliable, you naturally care less about external validation. When you stop caring about external validation, you become more attractive to the opportunities and relationships that align with your authentic self. Keep in mind, the goal is to develop the ability to care deeply about what truly matters to you, while remaining unshakable in the face of what doesn't. In short, you stop caring about things that aren't worth caring about. Class dismissed. The path to becoming truly unstoppable isn't found in caring more intensely about outcomes, but in releasing your desperate grip on controlling them. When you stop being a slave to external validation, when you trust your inner judgment above all else, when you find freedom through simplicity rather than accumulation, you discover a kind of strength that no external circumstance can shake. Montaigne's acceptance of mortality, the Taoist principle of effortless action, Antisthenes' inner sovereignty, and Diogenes' radical simplicity all point to the same truth. Your power lies not in what you can acquire or control, but in what you can release. The person who needs less is always stronger than the person who needs more. The soul who can let go is always freer than the one desperately grasping. This isn't a destination you reach in a weekend. It's a daily practice of choosing authenticity over performance, acceptance over control, and inner wisdom over external validation. Each time you choose your authentic preference over social expectation, each time you release worry about uncontrollable outcomes, each time you simplify rather than complicate, you become a little more unstoppable. Thank you for joining me on this exploration into the liberating philosophy of positive detachment. If this resonated, please share your reflections in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into the depths of practical psychology, philosophy, and self-improvement. Until next time.